Warfare is a 95-minute war film from A24 that plays out entirely in real time. A Navy SEAL surveillance mission in Ramadi goes catastrophically wrong. Real veterans walked out of theaters mid-screening because the experience was too close to what they lived through overseas. If you have ever sat through a war movie and wondered what actual combat feels like for the people inside of it, this is the closest any film has come to putting you in that room. This video examines firearms strictly as historical movie props and within a film analysis context. It is not about real-world use, tactics, or instruction. If you notice when movies nail the details or completely miss them, this is the kind of channel to subscribe to. To understand why Warfare hits different from other war movies, you need to know where it came from. The film exists because of a conversation between two directors on another movie set. Mendoza spent 16 years as a Navy SEAL. He was working as a military advisor on Alex Garland's Civil War in 2024 when he started sharing stories from his deployments. One mission in particular stuck with Garland. It happened in Ramadi, Iraq in 2006. Mendoza was there. His platoon occupied a two-story house for overwatch during a joint operation with Marines. What started as routine surveillance turned into a desperate fight for survival that none of them would forget. Garland wanted to make a movie about it. Here is the thing that made this project different from every other war film in recent memory. There would be no Hollywood additions, no fictional drama. The entire script would come from the memories of the actual SEAL team members who lived through it. Mendoza agreed to co-write and co-direct. The production secured backing from A24, a studio known for taking risks on unconventional projects that challenge mainstream filmmaking conventions. Production started in February 2024 with a budget of around $20 million. They filmed at Bovingdon Airfield Studios in the United Kingdom. The location allowed them to build a controlled recreation of the confined house setting from the real mission. Garland originally planned to co-direct every scene, but he stepped back to let Mendoza handle the military precision, while Garland focused on the script and visual storytelling elements that would bring the experience to screen. The script itself came together through interviews with members of SEAL Team 5. Most of them are listed under aliases in the film to protect their identities and ongoing security concerns. Only two real names appear. One is Mendoza himself, the other is Elliot Miller, the corpsman who suffered life-changing wounds during the actual incident. Miller lost a leg. He suffered a traumatic brain injury that took away his ability to speak and erased his memories of the event entirely. For Mendoza, making this film was partly about giving Miller back something that was taken from him. The film serves as a reconstruction of a memory that no longer exists in Miller's mind. Real SEALs from the original platoon consulted on set throughout production. Every detail had to match reality. The radio chatter, the weapon handling, the way injuries look and sound. The IED explosion sequence was choreographed based on survivor accounts using practical effects rather than computer-generated imagery. The goal was dust, disorientation, and blood without any Hollywood exaggeration. Every piece of debris, every cloud of dust, every spray of blood came from practical effects, work designed to match what the survivors remembered. Let me talk about the weapons and gear, because this is where most war movies get things wrong. Warfare gets them right. The film shows 2006-era SEAL loadouts with period-correct accuracy. The primary rifle you see throughout the film is the M4 carbine. These are shown with suppressors attached, which was standard for SEAL operations during urban night missions. The suppressors reduce muzzle flash and noise signature, making it harder for enemies to locate shooters by sound or sight. The M4 carbines in the film have the correct rail systems and optics for the 2006 timeframe. You also see night vision equipment throughout the early portions of the film. The SEALs in the movie wear PVS-15-style dual-tube night vision goggles mounted on their helmets. This matches what was actually issued to special operations units in 2006. The body armor shown is period-correct as well. You can see the plate carriers and ceramic plates that were standard issue during the Iraq War. The load-bearing equipment and magazine pouches reflect what operators actually carried during operations in Ramadi during this period. The film pays attention to smaller details that most viewers would never notice. The placement of claymore mines in the defensive perimeter matches actual SEAL doctrine for establishing overwatch positions. When the claymores detonate during the attack sequence, the practical effects team used real explosive charges to capture the concussive force accurately. The directional nature of the claymore blast is correctly depicted, showing the kill zone spreading outward in the intended direction as designed. This is one of those details that only stands out if you're really watching the film. Curious if you caught it too. Now let me explain the tactical setup of the mission, because this is essential context. The Battle of Ramadi was one of the most intense urban combat operations of the entire Iraq War. U.S. forces were fighting to reclaim the city from al-Qaeda insurgents through block-by-block clearances. By 2006, American units had developed specific tactics for this environment. The learning curve was steep and paid for in blood over months of fighting. SEALs would seize civilian structures to gain elevated positions for overwatch. They called this establishing a combat outpost. In the movie, Alpha 1 Platoon takes over a two-story house for exactly this purpose. Their job is to monitor enemy activity and report on tactics, techniques, and procedures. This includes watching for IED placements hidden in walls and identifying probing scouts sent by insurgent forces. The overwatch position gave them visibility of key intersections and avenues of approach throughout their sector. The film captures something called battle rhythms. This is the pattern of combat where intense firefights alternate with quiet periods for ammunition resupply, hydration, and casualty care. Most war movies show non-stop action. Warfare shows the waiting, it shows the boredom, and then it shows how quickly everything falls apart. The transition from calm to chaos happens in seconds with no warning and no time to prepare. One of the most accurate tactical sequences involves the use of Bradley fighting vehicles for supporting fire. When the situation deteriorates, the platoon calls in Bradleys to provide cannon support. The 25mm chain gun on the Bradley can punch through walls and vehicles alike. The coordination between ground forces and armored vehicles matches actual protocols used in Iraq. Mendoza himself served as the Joint Terminal Attack Controller, which means he was responsible for coordinating airstrikes during the real mission. His character in the film performs this same role with the same terminology and procedures used in actual operations. The insurgent tactics shown in the film are also accurate to the period. Enemies throw grenades through sniper holes in walls. They use IEDs placed in unexpected locations throughout the urban environment. Mendoza has said in interviews that insurgents learned to adapt to American tactics over time. When U.S. forces started hugging walls for cover, insurgents began rigging those same walls with explosives. This deadly game of adaptation cost lives on both sides throughout the conflict. Let me get into the evacuation scenes, because this is where the film becomes almost unbearable to watch. Casualty evacuation protocols in combat are brutal and calculated. You have to prioritize who gets out first, based on injury severity and survivability. In the film, Elliot Miller and another wounded SEAL named Sam require immediate extraction. There is a scene where a team member impersonates a superior officer over the radio to get urgent approval for the evacuation. This actually happened. It was a risky improvisation that could have ended careers, but it saved lives. The desperation in that moment comes through clearly on screen. The covering fire sequences during extraction show coordinated suppression. Teams leapfrog between positions, while others lay down fire to keep enemy heads down. This is standard infantry doctrine executed under the worst possible conditions. The ammunition expenditure during these sequences reflects real combat, where magazines empty faster than anyone expects them to. Two Iraqi interpreters appear in the film. Their names are Farid and Sidar. They play a role that often gets ignored in war movies. These interpreters gather local civilians into safe rooms during the fighting. This reflects actual procedures designed to minimize civilian casualties during urban combat operations. The interpreters risked their lives working alongside American forces every single day. The casting approach for warfare reinforced its commitment to authenticity. The production deliberately chose young actors to match the real age of the platoon members. Many of the actual SEALs who fought in Ramadi were in their early 20s. The director wanted to capture the vulnerability of youth in combat rather than casting older action stars who look invincible. DeFaro Woon. Atai plays Mendoza in the film. He underwent SEAL-style training to prepare for the role. His character handles the JTAC responsibilities, which means calling in air support and coordinating with aircraft overhead. Will Poulter plays Lieutenant Eric, one of the senior members of the platoon. Cosmo Jarvis portrays Elliot Miller, the corpsman who suffers the most devastating injuries during the mission. Jarvis actually met with the real Elliot Miller before filming. He studied Miller's mannerisms and tried to capture his stoic personality. After Miller's injuries, he could no longer speak. Jarvis had to figure out how to portray someone who exists in silence, someone whose memories of this event are completely gone. The weight of that responsibility shaped his entire performance throughout the production. The sound design deserves special attention because it does most of the emotional heavy lifting. Glenn Fremantle led the sound team. They layered actual combat recordings into the audio mix. The soundtrack is not music. It is gunfire, radio static, and screaming. The audio team specifically designed certain sequences to induce stress in viewers. There are moments where the ringing in your ears mimics what tinnitus sounds like after an explosion. Veterans who have experienced IED blasts report that this sound design triggered physical responses in them. The absence of a traditional film score is completely intentional. Most war movies use orchestral music to tell you how to feel. Warfare refuses to do this. You hear what the SEALs heard: chaos, confusion, the muffled sounds that come after a concussive blast rattles your brain. There's no musical cue telling you to feel sad or triumphant or hopeful. The psychological dimension of the film focuses on trauma without turning it into a lecture. The movie shows concussions causing dissociation. After the IED detonates, Mendoza and Eric experience blurred vision and ringing ears. These symptoms match real traumatic brain injuries that were common during the Iraq War. Thousands of veterans returned home with similar invisible wounds that took years to diagnose and treat properly. The film does not include speeches about PTSD. Instead, it shows hypervigilance through constant scanning of windows and doorways. It shows emotional numbing during quiet moments. It shows survivors' guilt in the desperation to save wounded teammates. There's a scene early in the film where the platoon watches a music video while waiting for the mission to begin. This kind of humor serves as psychological armor. It is a coping mechanism before walking into horror. Veterans on social media have warned others with PTSD to approach this film carefully. The triggers are real. Mendoza has responded to these concerns by saying that truth liberates even when it hurts. The film does not shy away from depicting what combat actually does to the human mind and body. The premier strategy for warfare targeted veterans first. In March 2025, there was a screening at the Hollywood American Legion Theater that included question and answer sessions with real platoon members. The goal was to create space for healing discussions rather than entertainment alone. These screenings allowed veterans to process their reactions in a supportive environment, surrounded by people who understood their experiences. Some critics labeled the film as military propaganda because it does not engage with the broader politics of the Iraq War. The film does not ask whether the invasion was justified. It does not show the Iraqi perspective in detail. It focuses entirely on the American soldiers trying to survive a specific mission. Mendoza has pushed back against these criticisms by arguing that the film's truthfulness liberates veterans rather than glorifying war. The technical achievement of filming in real time creates a specific effect on viewers. There are no cuts to other locations. There are no flashbacks. There is no relief. You are trapped in that house for 95 minutes, just like the SEALs were trapped. The handheld cameras and natural lighting add to the disorientation. You cannot always see what is happening. Neither could they. The production team used declassified photographs of the actual house to recreate the interior with precision. The placement of furniture, the cracks in walls, the sight lines from windows all came from real documentation and first-hand accounts. This level of detail extends to the injuries depicted on screen. Miller's leg amputation and brain trauma are shown with practical effects that match the actual wounds he suffered during that mission. Warfare stands as a unique entry in American war cinema because it was made by someone who lived through the events being depicted. Most war films are made by directors interpreting experiences they only read about or researched secondhand. This one comes from memory. It carries the weight of things that cannot be forgotten no matter how hard you try or how many years pass. The film is dedicated to Elliot Miller. In the end credits, his name appears along with acknowledgments to the other platoon members who shared their memories to make this project possible. For 95 minutes, audiences get to experience a fraction of what these men went through during that day in Ramadi. That experience has proven powerful enough to affect real soldiers who thought they had moved past their traumas years ago. Warfare asks its audience to sit with discomfort and offers no easy answers or any emotional release.